The FAFSA, what is it and how do you fill it out? Stick with me and by the end of the video, you'll understand the answers to both. I'm Bradford with the Penny Pincher's Guide, and the FAFSA, or the Federal Application for Student Aid, is one of the easiest ways that you can get financial aid for college. So what exactly is the FAFSA? The FAFSA itself falls underneath the Department of Education, and when you go and apply for it, you're going to get 4 main categories of aid that you may or may not be eligible for. And they go in order. You have grants and scholarships, which for the recipient or the student are effectively the same thing. It is money that is given to you with no strings attached. The next thing down the list are going to be work studies. Now, work study is a job that you would qualify for, most likely on campus, or it might be a job in the surrounding community, depending on which college you go to. And it is something that the federal government sets up with a certain number of hours that you are allowed to work as a way of earning money to be able to pay towards your tuition and other college expenses. And the last element that you'll receive information on when it comes to filling out the FAFSA is going to be for student loans. Now, there's going to be various things with federally backed student loans. They'll have fixed interest rates and lower interest rates than private student loans. But please stay away from student loans as much as possible. And we have a bunch of videos explaining as to exactly why you should be sticking with grants, working, and scholarships to be able to fund your way through college and to stay as far away as possible from student loans. Now, in terms of eligibility, while the FAFSA is mainly directed towards U.S. citizens that will be going to school in the United States, they do have eligibility requirements that also extends to foreign students that are studying in the United States and non-citizen residents that live in the United States. For a full list of the exact eligibility requirements to fill out and be eligible for the FAFSA and all of its scholarships, grants, and work study programs, I have a link in the description below. Now that you have a general idea of what the FAFSA is and how once you fill it out, you're gonna have a bunch of resources available to you to be able to fund your college expenses. So now that you know what the FAFSA kind of is, let's actually go into what you need to have in hand to be able to fill out the FAFSA itself. Now, most of the information that you're going to need to be able to fill out the FAFSA is going to be based on income and assets that you and or your parents might have. Now, because a lot of the aid that is provided through the FAFSA is need-based, this is particularly important. So unless you qualify as an independent, this is going to be a time that you need to go talk to your parents and talk to them about getting their W-2s or their 1099s from the previous year, as well as their IRS tax returns for the previous year. Now, aside from proof of income, which you're going to get from the W-2, the 1099, and the IRS tax returns, you're also going to need to be able to show other forms of untaxable income. And the main one that would come up here is going to be sort of alimony or child support. And then the last thing to consider when it comes to assets is looking at your bank statements and investment statements that you or your parents might have to understand what your total assets or net worth are, because both of those are going to be required to actually fill out the FAFSA in its entirety. Now, we'll caveat it with when you are actually filling out the FAFSA, they do have an IRS data retrieval tool, which is actually able to import a lot of the information from their previous year's tax return directly into the FAFSA and save you a lot of button pushes. So once you have all of the required information in hand, it's important to understand what the various FAFSA deadlines are. So there's the big picture FAFSA deadline, which is the actual requirement to have the FAFSA completed and submitted for it to be actually processed by the federal government. And that's going to be the end of June, prior to the start of the following school year when you plan to start college. Now, please keep in mind that is only the deadline to actually submit the FAFSA. Each state and college is going to have their own requirements for when you have to have the FAFSA submitted by to be eligible to receive various sorts of aid. And many of them have deadlines that are months earlier, so please stay on top of them, figure out what exact deadlines you need to be meeting, and that way you can ensure the FAFSA is submitted and you're able to receive the aid you are actually eligible for. So moving forward to actually filling out and completing the FAFSA, the general timeline that you're going to be dealing with is you're going to first need to make a FAFSA account, and that can take anywhere between 3 and 5 business days for that account to be verified because it is tied to your social security number. After your account is verified, then you're going to be able to go in, fill out all of the required information, and then sign and submit your FAFSA. After that point, the Department of Education actually has to run through your FAFSA, verify all the information that you submitted, and then they're going to return that to you, again, 3 to 5 business days later. At that point, you're going to get an SAR, or Student Aid Report, and that's going to tell you what sort of aid you are eligible for. Now, in terms of actually estimating and calculating how much aid you will be eligible for, they take your cost of attendance to the various schools that you're planning on applying to, and you can select up to 30 in the FAFSA application. And then they're going to take your expected family contribution, or how much money your family should be able to help fund your education. They're going to subtract the cost of attendance from the expected family contribution, and that last number is going to be what is used to determine how much need-based financial aid you actually need. Now that is a very big picture in terms of what they actually do. If you are interested in the more nerdy side of things and what the actual formula is, again, I have a link in the description below. You can go through it. It's about 10 pages that walks you from A to Z as to how your need-based financial aid is actually calculated. Now, for the actual part of walking through how the FAFSA is filled out, because I'm a grad student myself, I went through and I filled out the FAFSA from the very start all the way up to getting the student aid report, and we're gonna go through that process so that way you understand exactly how it is done and you can use my own example as a way for you to follow along. So let's get into it. Go to Google, type in FAFSA, it should be the first thing that pops up. Now you're gonna go new to the FAFSA process, start here, say I am the student. Now you're gonna have to create your FAFSA ID, which we'll use throughout the entirety of this process. Select Get Started, you're gonna need to put in your name, your date of birth, your social security number, which is really important. Create a username, password, put in your email address. Where do you live, as well as a phone number. Put in your communication preference, whether it is by email or text message, as well as the language that you speak and read. Confirm, verify, create some challenge questions so you can recover the account if you forget your password. Verify your phone number and your email address. Now, that's going to take a couple days to be processed. Now, coming back in, you're going to say, hey, I'm a returning user, and now we're actually going to go through the process of filling out the FAFSA itself. You're going to have to create a save key, which will be used every time you come back and re-attack the FAFSA. Moving forward, you're going to be re-entering some of the same information you did the first time to be able to actually apply for the FAFSA. It's going to be your name, date of birth, social security number, email address, what's your actual address that you live at, how long have you lived there. If it's been less than 5 years, you're going to have to indicate your previous residence, as well as whether or not you are a U.S. citizen. What's your high school graduation status, as well as the highest level of education you've completed. Male or female. If you are male, you are required to register with the Selective Service, also known as the draft. Your driver's license number, as well as what state you're in. Are you in the foster care system? What is the education level of your parent or parents? Have you ever received federal student aid previously? What is the high school you're at, or did you graduate from? Where are you trying to go to school? You can enter up to 30 schools or universities. Select whether you're going to be living on campus or off campus. What's your marital status? Most of you, this is going to be single, which makes it pretty easy. When you got married, if that's applicable. If you have any children that you are responsible for. Hopefully for most of you being in high school, the answer is no to both of these. How many people in your household are in college? Most of you being in high school, you will have to answer questions about your parents. This is a useful tool. The IRS data import should be used to pull the previous information from the tax return of the previous year into the FAFSA, which fills out a bunch of blanks already. Transfer that, get your parents to help out in terms of the actual information from the tax return, and you'll have to enter how much money is being earned by your household. Make sure a lot of the stuff, as it says, is transferred if you did use that data tool. Now you're gonna have other income amounts that are non-taxable, think alimony or child support. How much money are you receiving through those avenues? This last element, what is your net worth, checking, savings account, investments. And then, are you prepared? Most of us know, review all your demographics, make sure everything's correct. Now you're gonna move on to next. Read everything first, never sign something without reading it. Click agree, move on, sign it. Now you're going to submit your FAFSA. It's going to take 3 to 5 business days, and then you're actually going to get your SAR, which is what you have right here. This is mine. I'm ineligible for any aid. Hopefully when you get yours back, you are actually eligible, but it's going to give you different options in terms of Pell Grants as well as what loans, but please stay away from the loans. Make sure you're only following the scholarships and the Pell Grants that are available to you, as well as work-study programs. So I hope now you have an understanding of what the FAFSA is, what the potential benefits are for filling it out, and how to actually go through the process of filling out the entire FAFSA, submitting it, and getting your own student aid report. Now, one thing I would like to throw in here is that for a lot of people, if their parents are higher income earners, they're not going to be eligible for a lot of the need-based financial aid that is part of the FAFSA itself. Now, I was in that position when I was applying for college, and so I never actually filled out the FAFSA for my undergrad. I would like to say you should fill out the FAFSA regardless of how much money your parents make, because it just opens doors and it doesn't hurt you. All in all, it's probably going to take you about 30 minutes to fill out the FAFSA from start to finish once you have all the necessary information there. So please take the time, fill out the FAFSA, and figure out what aid you are eligible for. There might be something that you just don't know about, and if you never fill out the FAFSA, you won't know what you're missing out on. So get after it, and until next time, just remember to pinch a little. Thanks for watching, and if you liked this video, make sure to check out the video that's on the left-hand side of your screen.
Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like more great content, and to support our channel.